Hi, my name is Dr. Frederick Edward Fabella, and I will be discussing learning styles. So look at the diagram here. This diagram details to us the four different kinds of learning styles. They are the visual, the auditory, the read-write, and the kinesthetic. So let's discuss them one by one. Okay? So, what is the premise of these different learning styles? We all experience the world in unique ways, and with that comes variation in the ways we learn best. Understanding these different types of learning styles can drastically impact the way teachers handle their students, set up group projects, and adapt individual learning. Part of your responsibility as an educator is to adjust your lessons to the unique group of students you are working with at any given time. The best teachers can cater to each student's strengths, ensuring they are truly grasping the information. So let's start with the visual learners. All right. Okay. So how do we recognize visual learners in class? They are the learners who have a preference for seeing and observing things, including pictures, diagrams, written directions, and more. This is also referred to as the spatial learning style. Students who learn through sight understand information better when it's presented in a visual way. These are your doodling students, your list makers, and your students who take notes. So how do we cater to the visual learner? Give students opportunities to draw pictures and diagrams on the board. Ask students to doodle examples based on the topic they are learning. Teachers catering to visual learners who should regularly make handouts and use presentations. So look at that picture there. There's a student who is probably making a sketch, drawing, or creating a diagram. And this picture shows us presentations being used by the teacher in order to aid in teaching her students. All right? So, visual learners may also need more time to process material as they observe the visual cues before them. So, be sure to give students a little time and space to absorb the information. Okay, so that's the visual learner. Let's now go to the auditory learner. So how do we recognize the auditory learner in class? Auditory learners tend to learn better when the subject matter is reinforced by sound. These students would much rather listen to a lecture than read written notes, and they often use their own voices to reinforce new concepts and ideas. These types of learners prefer reading out loud to themselves. They aren't afraid to speak up in class and are great at verbally explaining things. Additionally, they may be slower at reading and may often repeat things a teacher tells them. So, how do we cater to the auditory learner? Since these students generally find it hard to stay quiet for long periods of time, get your auditory learners involved in the lecture by asking them to repeat new concepts back to you. All right, so you see a picture there of a student reciting, perhaps maybe even explaining the lesson that she had just learned. Ask questions and let them answer. Invoke group discussions so your auditory and verbal processors can properly take in and understand the information they're being presented with. So let's now go to the kinesthetic learner. So how do we recognize kinesthetic learners? Kinesthetic learners, sometimes called tactile learners, learn through experiencing or doing things. They like to get involved by acting out events or using their hands to touch and handle in order to understand concepts. These types of learners might struggle to sit still and often excel at sports or like to dance. They may need to take more frequent breaks when studying. Alright, so how do we cater to kinesthetic learners? The best way teachers can help these students learn is by getting them moving. Instruct students to act out a certain scene from a book or a lesson you are teaching. So look at that. You have students there doing an activity. All right. Also, try encouraging these students by incorporating movement into lessons, pacing to help memorize, learning games that involve moving around the classroom, or having students write on the whiteboard as part of an activity. So let's now go to the last type of learning style, which is the reading writing learner. Okay, so how do you recognize reading writing learners in your class? While there is some overlap with visual learning, these types of learners are drawn to expression through writing, or reading articles or books, writing in diaries, looking up words in the dictionary, and searching the internet for just about everything. So, how do we cater to reading writing learners? Of the four learning styles, this is probably the easiest to cater to since much of the traditional educational system tends to center on writing essays, doing research, and reading books. So, if you have a reading writing learner, ask him or her to read and research. Okay? Be mindful about allowing plenty of time for these students to absorb information through the written word and give them opportunities to get their ideas out on paper as well. So there you have it, the four learning styles. Thank you very much.